In section 3.7, we focused on adding and subtracting fractions, and in the video, we focused merely on positive fractions. In class, we emphasized negatives a little bit more. And today on 3-8, we're going to be adding and subtracting mixed numbers. There are a couple of ways to do this process. Mixed numbers can be changed into improper fractions. That's where, your numerator is larger than your denominator. And you can go ahead and change mixed numbers to improper fractions and then just add or subtract like you normally would. Or you can do what I do, and that is to keep them as mixed numbers. The first question we're going to do is -3 5/6 plus a -1 5/6. The difference between yesterday and today's lesson now is not only am I dealing with mixed numbers, but I also have negatives. And I need to remember my integer rules. The sign in the middle, the operation I'm doing is adding. That means I'm going to be trying to remember the lyrics of my song. And if I think back, the lyrics have something to do with same signs or different signs. Since I have a negative plus a negative, that's my same signs, add and keep. When I'm dealing with mixed numbers, I actually like to add them vertically. I don't know why, it makes more sense to me. Both of these are same signs. That means I'm going to add them together and I'm going to keep the sign. I'm going to go ahead and put that negative sign down there in the answer just because I need to remember that I have to take care of that. All right, now once we've taken care of the sign, I need to focus on adding the fraction portion of my mixed number. And remember, when we're adding fractions, we have to have common denominators, which we are super lucky we already have that. That means I'm going to go ahead and add my numerators. 5 plus 5 is 10. Keep my denominator of 6. 3 plus 1 is 4. That gives me -4 and 10/6. But here is an improper fraction as it's written. What I need to think about is, what would 10/6 be really equal to as a mixed number? We'll set up our long division where 6 goes on the outside, 10 goes on the inside. 6 goes into 10 one whole time with 4 out of 6 remaining. 1 4/6, which can also be simplified to 1 2/3. Okay, when I think about this, that -4 and 10/6, well, that 10/6 was a 1 2/3 hiding out in there. That means that this 4 needs to be bumped to the 5, that -5, and then I need that 2/3 piece that was left over from when I changed that improper fraction to a mixed number. My answer is -5 2/3. All right, we're going to go ahead and do one on your own. -2 3/5 plus 4 1/3. Make sure on this one I don't have a common denominator, so I've got to pay attention. And then also look at your signs. I have a negative that I'm adding to a positive. So take all of that into consideration, and I want you to try it on your own. Pause the video, work it out, insert your answer on to play pause it. Okay, I am going to talk through this one a little bit more because it is kind of tricky. Okay, we are adding, but I have a negative plus a positive. That means different signs subtract. Whenever I subtract, it doesn't matter what I have. The larger fraction, positive or negative, the larger absolute value is going to go first. 4 1/3 is larger than 2 3/5. I'm going to line it up on top. And I need to find a common denominator between thirds and fifths. If I just multiply them together, I know that my common denominator is going to be 15. 3 times 5, 1 times 5. Then I'm going to multiply the denominators by 3 on the second fraction. All right. Let's rewrite it using our common denominator. Be 4 and 5/15 minus 2 and 9/15. We have our different signs subtract, but we need to keep the sign of the higher number. It actually turns out in our favor because 4 and 1/3 is the larger absolute value. That means that my answer will be positive when I'm all done with it. Okay, so here's the other thing. I had to take 9 away from 5. I can't do that. I don't have enough. I need to borrow from the 4 and make it a 3. And then I've got to add 1 whole back in. And I don't know if you remember back in 4th or 5th grade, when you borrow from a whole number and make it a fraction part, you actually have to add whatever the denominator is. So my new numerator over here is going to be 3 and 20/15 once I'm all said and done, minus 2 and 9/15. 20/15 minus 9/15 is 11/15, and then 3 minus 2 is 1. You know the answer is going to be positive, so that does it for that question right there. Okay, next up is subtraction. We're going to do 1 here, 1 and 7/9 minus 17/18. And just for giggles, we're going to make that 1 and 7/9 a negative. That way we get some practice with our integer rules. Okay, first of all, I am subtracting, so my rule is going to be keep, change, change. That means that I'm going to keep that negative sign in front of the 1 and 7/9, change the subtraction to addition, and change the second fraction to a negative. Once I've done that, I know I just rewrote a subtraction problem as addition because subtracting is the same as adding the opposite. And that allows me to sing my fabulous, fabulous song. I have a negative plus a negative, which is same signs add and keep. I'm going to go ahead and write my fraction problem vertically, lining up my fraction parts. Since this one doesn't have a whole number, I could write a 0 there, or I could just leave it blank. All right, now here I do need to have a common denominator, and I'm lucky because 9 actually goes into 18, which means I can rewrite my problem fairly quickly. That would be 1 and 14/18 plus 17/18, which we know back from our first problem that those are both negative fraction. My answer is going to be negative as well. Okay, now I'm going to add my fraction parts together. 14 plus 17 is 31. Keep my denominator, 18ths. And then 1 plus 0 is 1. But I do have an improper fraction as part of my answer, and that's not good. As a result, I'm going to think about how many times 18 goes into 31. It's not twice, it's pretty close. And it's going to be 13. That is all we're doing there is thinking about what 31/18 equals. 31/18 is the same thing as 1 and 13/18. And in the case of this problem, that extra 1 is going to make that -1 bump up to a -2, and then the 13/18 comes into play. -2 and 13/18 is our answer. On your own, I want you to work on this problem, 4 and 5/12 minus 1 and 7/12. Do we have a common denominator? And if so, what do I do from there? I just briefly solved it for you so we can kind of go over it. 4 and 5/12 minus 1 and 7/12 is just a straight up subtraction problem. Because the first fraction is positive and it's a larger fraction than the second fraction. You can just line this up as subtraction just like I did. If you wanted to, you could do keep, change, which you would lead you to different sign, subtract. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and line up my fraction. I had 4 and 5/12 minus 1 and 7/12. They already have common denominators, but the problem is I can't take away 7 from 5. That means I need to borrow from 4 and make that a 3. And one whole piece, when I break it up to be, the same size as my 12s, that means I'm going to add 12 to my numerator to represent the one that I borrowed. Rewrite my fraction, and I get 3 and 17/12 minus 1 and 7/12. Subtract, and I get 2 and 10/12, which then needs to be simplified to 2 and 5/6. And it is your lucky day. You do not need to do the U-pick problem. But I do want to think about what operation you would use. So the example is the liquid ingredients in a recipe are water and olive oil. The recipe calls for 3½ cups of water and 1 1/8 cups of olive oil. How many cups of liquid ingredients are included in the recipe? So just answer what operation will I need, and that wraps up the video.